Welcome back to Early Exchange. Before we went on that particular short break, I was speaking to Mr. Sheyi Akindele. Where we're looking at how African countries can position themselves to play big in the innovation of the future with respect to tech. Let's not forget, today is about wealth creation. And you don't emerge in the future cap in hand and say you want to be a big player there. No, you go there, you are intentional. Mr. Sheyi, welcome again.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we were talking about how African countries can, do the right thing now to ensure that they are champions of the future. But then education plays a key role in this. What kind of investments in education should we be making at this point in time to ensure that 5, 10 years from now, we will be one of the, big champions of the future?
Great question. Like you said, it plays a key role. And I think one of the first things we need to do in terms of investment is first of all, reforming our university and polytechnic curriculum. So you have to ensure that the curriculum is relevant to the current and anticipated, job market, because things are changing, technology is changing. And then we have to integrate these skills like critical thinking, problem solving, digital literacy, and of course, sometimes, because at the end of the day, what we also find missing sometimes is even the entrepreneurship factor. So we're saying that maybe the final semester of every university or polytechnic should involve some kind of entrepreneurship where people can actually try to practicalize a lot of these things and bring to market, because that's the only way you can change. Then you have to embrace technology even in courses that are not technology driven. So you have to embrace technology in them, deploying e-learning platforms, providing digital resources, and promoting online courses to reach more students and facilitate lifelong learning. And another thing we need to start investing in is teacher training. Now, one of the things you will notice is that some of these teachers are also delivering obsolete knowledge. So they need to start teaching them on modern use of technology, modern things, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, cybersecurity. These are things that they need to also start learning. And then also strengthening vocational and technical training. And then, some of the universities and technical schools should get engaged in public-private partnerships so that they can collaborate with private sector to design courses and training programs that would meet industry needs. Because what we see is that students are coming out of university and they're not able to fit into, the modern workforce. And then emphasizing on STEM education, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And obviously doing a lot of investments in, building our university laboratories, equipping them with modern technology, fast internet access, 5G, Wi-Fi, WiMAX, all these technologies, and having these computer systems, computer labs that are up to scratch. That is one of the things I think we can start to do in order to get to that global level.
Okay, how can we have knowledge exchange programs and even cross-border programs that is not just about Nigeria? Let's look at Africa in general. Some African countries are more advanced than others. So how can we facilitate this exchange of knowledge from one part of Africa to the other to have a regional development?
Well, another good question you've asked there. To encourage this kind of cross-border partnership, as you have said, how can we have it? We need to start having something like, countries need to come into bilateral and multilateral agreements. That is entering into agreements with other countries to foster collaboration in areas such as trade, technology, education, and research. You also have to start creating and participating in international forums. So it's not just about our students learning here. We need to start to, go to these countries and see what they're doing, going to their research institutes, having a real life visual interaction with these things. Then obviously promoting trade missions and expos. So we have to go do organize and participate in international trade missions and expos, creating opportunities for businesses to network and then form partnerships. through some of these expos. Then, of course, things like funding and incentives for collaboration. You have to provide funding, or even things like tax incentives for businesses and institutions to engage in international partnerships. And another thing we've seen is that the ease of travel from one African country to the other is still very difficult. Sometimes to get to a neighboring African country, you have to go through Europe. So we need to start easing some of these visa and work permits as well. We need to have, these governments need to come together to find a middle ground to say, look, let's sign this agreement so that it is easy for our people to move from Nigeria to your country, and for your people to move from your country to back to our country. And then obviously things like collaborative research program, cultural exchange programs. These are some of the things that we can leverage to have these cross-border partnerships, as you have said.
Okay, let's look at tech startups and tech hubs here and there. Of course, they need support, because these days you see 2-3 young boys coming together and they are, saying they want to start a tech business. It is the currency of the future and even the currency of the present as we speak. What kind of support mechanisms should we put in place as African nations to encourage, the survival of startups and ensure that we have more and more of them? Because the more of them that we have, I believe, the more we're able to play big in the future. What support should we give tech startups?
Oh, fantastic. Again, government needs to come up with regulation that is very friendly. We should prioritize even what we see in government here is I attended a program sometime about we need to improve our non-oil exports, and this tech sector is actually one of them. And for you to actually do this, you need government investment and regulation. That's then obviously things like funding. It comes with funding as well, because one of the things that we've seen is either through grants or through debt finance or through equity finance. You need to fund. You need to increase funding in that. Then you need to give tax incentives even for people that are starting businesses. You don't expect somebody who is starting a business or who is trying to start a startup to start to pay tax within the first 3 years. So these are some of the things that we're doing that the government needs to put in place to actually help, because that we see that very soon there won't be jobs any longer. People have to create their own jobs. People have to, whether it is a small business or it is tech startup, and government need to give tax incentives. They need to give us regulation that is very friendly, not hostile regulation. Sometimes you hear government banning this social media, or that's not the way to. If you ban something, how are you going to encourage collaboration? So these are some of the things that they need to start to do. And then one of the other things that we're thinking is internet penetration the internet needs to penetrate more, because that's what startups are built on. Everybody is starting. I mean, you've heard of companies in Nigeria. Out of the 7 unicorn African companies, 5 of them are actually from Nigeria. 5 out of 7 in Africa. Unicorn is a company that is worth over $1 billion. So we need more of this. We shouldn't just have 5 out of a population of about 200 million people. We need to be having 10, 20, 30, and then we also need to develop our stock market, whereby a company can actually go and raise capital, to fund the operation. Our banks, whether microfinance, whether traditional banks, need to start extending loans to startup. And then we need to encourage a lot of failure. We don't need to have failure. One of the things you see in advanced countries is that they encourage, they fail forward, they fail fast, they fail often, but they fail forward. So we need to encourage failure. We need to know that we're not going to get it right at first. So those are some of the things that can encourage people to actually start to build their own startups. And then I think if we do this, we'll probably have more startups and within this ecosystem.
Now, some people say that when you try to do too many things at a time, you will not succeed. You will spend more time than you would if you take it step by step. In trying to develop technologically, is it that we're approaching everything at once, trying to do all in terms of technological development, or there are certain aspects of tech that we should just earmark maybe for a period of 5 years and say, on this area, this is our focus. Let's try to come up with innovations around this area. Let's try to build capacity in this area. Which would work better for us?
Well, the truth is you can't specifically pick because the world is going global. Like there's no day you get online, we're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about machine learning, we're talking about fintech, we're talking about blockchain technology, we're talking about cyber security, we're talking about, so you can't constrain, and say, oh, let's focus. Because at the end of the day, you don't even know which one is going to come out first. Just two years ago, nobody knew about artificial intelligence, but now everybody's going AI, machine learning. The same thing with blockchain technology, same thing with cybersecurity. So what I think we need to do is we need to employ a bit of both. We need to have maybe strategic people focusing on some kind of needs-based assessment, whereby we know that, okay, there are critical problems that we have in this climate, in this environment, that we need to use technology to solve. And then there are more, global issues that we need to do. So some of the things I encourage is that sometimes we need to just go back to basics. Perform a needs assessment. Okay, so before establishing, what you want to do, perform a needs-based assessment, understand the local community-specific needs, conduct surveys, interviews, focus groups with local entrepreneurs and tech professionals and other stakeholders. Then after that, ability to secure funding is also, a major hurdle that we need to cross. Then, obviously, again, choose a strategic, like you said, a problem you want to solve. So if you want to use technology to solve transportation, if you want to use technology to solve green energy, if you want to use technology to solve, finance, then you pick a place. And then what I also think governments can do, because you cannot take government out of any kind of, government should provide that platform. There needs to be tech hubs. There need to be tech parks where people, graduates, can know and go, and then give them some kind of maybe a leeway where you say you are giving them an office, for instance, or a technology development center where you can go, you don't pay anything, there's free internet, there is free, IT resources, printer, you can do all that, and then making things like businesses register easily, 5 minutes, because I know in the UK, in the US, in all these advanced countries, you can sit down online and get your business registered within 5 minutes, get a bank account, and you can start to do business, and then give all these tax incentives. I think these are the things that would also help in shaping how we use technology in this part of the world.
All right. Still on that, if we play a game of 30 years, or what I say, a 30-year game from now, those who are 30 today will be 60. The 40-year-olds will be 70, and they really can't do so much in this future we're talking about. So in essence, the future belongs to the 10-year-olds of today, the 15-year-olds of today. How much of inclusion are we giving them in this tech, build up to the future? Are we really empowering them enough? Because it seems the attention is on people like you and I, who 40 years from now, we won't be vital players of this game of the future we're talking about. How much of inclusion are we giving the 10-year-olds of today that will really be the big-time players in the future?
Thank you. I have to say that we aren't, in that aspect, I don't think we're doing enough. We are not doing nearly enough because, we are, in this part of the world, we are optimizing for the downside. So you find out that in most institutions, you still cannot use technology. I mean, I remember, talking to some of, we employ a lot of Nigerian graduates. Some of them are not even able to use, technology while they were in university. So you're not able to use a phone. You're not able to. So if you're not able to use this technology, even as at the time you're entering university, maybe at the age of 15, 16, how do you want to build apps for the same phone? How do you want to build this? We're just consumers of this technology. We bring in, I think by now we should have Nigerian, made phone that, cheap, that will be cheaper than all the ones that we import. We should by now have apps that we are all using for things. Yes, we have people building apps, but it's not nearly enough, and that's because we're not including people from a young age. If you check all these people, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, and all these people that we all know very well, they started programming, they started computing at a very, very, very young age. That's why they're able to build all these humongous big multinational companies at a tender age. So the same thing we need to start doing here. Our universities need to start including from a very young age, from just the same way like in sports, you get people playing sports at a very young age. The people in entertainment, they start singing, they start acting at a very young age. We need to start getting people into technology at a very young age. There's nothing stopping a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old from learning how to start programming, how to start coding little by little, even if it's just making games or something. And as they grow older, as they become 10, 12, 15, when they now get to that age, they now have accumulated not just theoretical knowledge, they now have ability to actually do something that would affect. So I think we can do more, especially from so the curriculum right now. What I make plea for, especially in our primary and secondary schools, is to include things like coding and computer science knowledge, into the curriculum. It doesn't matter what the child is going to become, even if he wants to become a political scientist or a lawyer. Ability to be able to, interpret what code is very vital. So if we start doing that, I think we'll bring back, inclusion into, the fold.
Now, it's still on that line. We know that sometimes we see some smart kids doing very smart things, but there's no continuity. Should we have, like we have in sports, where you have scouts, where a talent is spotted, so they're then incorporated into maybe local teams and then from to national teams, so that talent begins to contribute nationally. Can we have something like that in tech, where people are identified to be smart, very creative, they're incorporated into mainstream development?
You're absolutely correct. You're very, very correct. That's the strategy we need to adopt right now. We don't need to fear. What I've seen here is that we are a bit scared of technology. So even as individuals, you don't want your 10-year-old child to spend all the time, online using some of the social media apps. You don't want them, spending time playing games online. But you see, over there, they encourage them because it is through the youth. How do kids get, imbibed into this thing? They first start to use it. So when you start to use it, then you start finding issues around it. So if you're using, say, you're playing a game on your mobile phone, for instance, maybe you want the game to do something that it's not doing. Then you start, thinking out of the box to say, okay, how can I get the game to do this? Then that's when you start, the creative juice starts to come in. And then you can now foster it by taking this creative juices, maybe to some of the, again, it has to be government-led. And of course, sometimes even, yes, maybe private, public-private partnership can also lend itself here. And another thing we also see is lack of resources amongst, even some families. So if you have a child or if you have a kid that is growing up and, you find out that this person is being creative, in being creative, you need resources. You need to buy the person a laptop. You need to get high-speed internet access for the person. You need to buy software tools. You need to do this. These are resource-intensive things. So if some of these things can be handled, can be offloaded onto government, whereby government can provide like a pack where if you have kids that are special in this area, you can bring them to this park where they are going to be further trained, and then probably over time we develop something like an IT academy or a Nigerian IT institute where that you can now take that child further. I think that's what we need in Nigeria. That's the only way we can affect the global tech industry.
All right, still on this conversation. In his book, The Outliers, Ian Malcolm says that it matters where you were born if you must be a big player in the world of tech. The likes of Bill Gates that you mentioned, it mattered where and when they were born. Now, let's look at children born in the rural areas of African countries. You can't compare the level of exposure of a child growing up in Lagos with the one that is growing up somewhere in your Forogi village, somewhere in the southwest, with due respect to that village anyway. Now, my question is this. How much of effort are techpreneurs like you, let's leave the government out of it now. Are you focusing on developing the rural areas in that in the context of that capacity? How do you intend to bring those who are in the rural areas into this tech space? Because if we can have tech even for rural areas, then there will be more inclusivity. That's my question there.
Again, well, you're sort of right. You're very correct. We need to actually be doing more. But you see, in trying to do more, you know, technology is a second layer. It's not the foundational education that people should have.
Sure.
That's the second layer. The first layer is first and foremost ability to read and write and comprehend. So how do you bring technology to rural areas where, I mean, even speaking in English, understanding, computers have their own language. That's why they call it programming language. So if you can't understand human language, how do you want to get people to start understanding programming language? So one of the first most basic thing is comprehension, ability to first read and write. So whether you want to now go into tech field or other field, but what we've seen is by the time you get to these areas that you're talking about, it's almost as if you're completely laying a groundwork, because you first need to get these young people, these young future leaders, you have to first get them into that mode of being even able to read and write and comprehend. So how long do you want to do this? So one of the first, that's why we can't take, again, we cannot take government out of it, because I am not going to use my resources to go to a rural area and teach somebody how to read and write. But what I can do is, if I go to an area where, for instance, what we do sometimes, we do outreaches. In fact, I actually have a small foundation where I teach kids from ages of 9 to 16 how to code, how to write code, how to program games, and then get these games onto app stores. But you see, it presupposes that this person already knows, number one, how to comprehend, how to write, because when you are coding, you are writing code. So, but I don't want to use my resources to teach somebody how to read and write. So if that foundation, that basic education is provided, then we can now, it will be easier for a lot more private sector people like us to go in there and train, because the truth is, this is from these same people that we're going to get people that will work in our company in 20, 30 years to come. So we also need to be planning for that. So while it is a bit easy to say, oh, we can be doing that, but the what is on ground isn't, merging with what we want to do. So the reality itself isn't, lining up with the dream that we have. Until something is done about the foundational education, I'm sorry, I don't think any progress will be made in that aspect.
Okay, the president has the plan of actually creating 1 million jobs in the digital sector within the next 4 years. And in support of that, Google is offering a grant of 1.2 billion naira to support that. And I know that other tech companies want to follow suit. But should it just be about job creation at this time? For those companies that may want to key into, what would you want them to look at as supporting the government in the area of digital economy?
Yes. Number one, we need a network of angel investors. Now, countries that have gone far in this thing, their tolerance to failure is very, very high. They're not just failure in terms of failure, even in terms of funding. So we need angel network. We need people that can give grants, that they know that, look, we're giving you these grants and we know that we are not expecting anything in return. So we need that. We need local venture capital funds, people that are already successful, people that are already, high flyers in our industry to come together with, and create a VC fund where that can foster, a lot of this development of startups, because we need a raft of it. Nigeria needs to be starting up maybe 1,000 companies in a year, and then obviously we know that probably out of these 1,000 companies, maybe 90% of them will fail. But of the 10%, we're sure that we're going to get 3 to 4 that will be globally, recognized. We need things like competitions and hackathons. So our universities, our secondary schools, we need to start having competition. We need to start, doing this tech competition. We need to start, having hackathons where people just come together with ideas and brainstorm, and you put them together in a room, and then they build things, and then you have, judges who are going to judge them, and then at the end of the day, whatever is built, you have already people that are going to fund them. And then we now also need, again, government grants and loans. Government can allocate certain portions of budget to provide interest-free loans or outright grants to all these promising startups, because at the end of the day, even if you have the best idea in the world, I mean, I know that people are using AI to build things like, detecting cancer, using it for things like fraud detection in financial systems. But you see, if you do not have the funding to carry these things forward, you're just wasting a whole lot of time. And again, public-private sector partnership is also needed. And then I think sometimes we need to also come up with something like a crowdfunding platform that would encourage entrepreneurs to raise small amounts of capital from a large number of people. So if for instance now 1,000 people can come together and put maybe $10 together, and then you have $10,000 that you can give as free grants to someone to build something. Those are the ways that I think we can people can come in together and assist in raising entrepreneurs.
I honestly, agree with you on the need for us to have hackathon as against cryathon or laughathon, all those tons that are irrelevant to the future that we are speaking to on this show today. But then maybe on the very last note from me, people confuse innovation for duplication. Now, innovation is moving from 0 to 1. When you move from nothing to something. Before Facebook, there was nothing like that. Before Tesla, maybe there was nothing like that. I wouldn't be so sure. But then, duplication is when you are moving from 1 to infinity. The players in the tech ecosystem in Nigeria are very good at duplication. Once it happens somewhere in the world, we can effectively duplicate. At what point do we get to that place where we are moving from 0 to 1? We don't lack originality of thinking, and we are not lazy thinkers. Is it more a matter of the latitude to play the game, or we're just being intentionally limiting in our thinking? How do we move from 0 to 1 as against from 1 to infinity? It's a very technical question, I know, but I know you can answer it.
Yes, it is. It's technical, and I'm glad you're asking this question. You see, the truth is, it's easier to duplicate than it is to go to originate an idea. And that's why if you think about, I always think about it too, that why is it that all the innovation in the world, you just mentioned Tesla, you mentioned Facebook, why are they all American companies? Why are they all American companies? Why are they all funded by American, VCs? Because they have their latitude to failure, their tolerance for failure is very, very high. So if you come with an idea that has never existed, like you just talked about Tesla is an electric car. Somebody just thought about it and said, why do we have to use petrol for cars? Why don't we use electricity? And a VC somewhere, will sit down and say, okay, that's a good idea. Nothing like this has been done. Let's do this. Mark Zuckerberg came with social media. Why don't we, when we were younger, we used to have albums. When people come to greet you in the house, you will show them your photos, But he just said, why don't we open it up to the internet instead of having albums? Somebody said, oh, really? Let's try this idea, And they're tolerant. They know you can fail. They know that the possibility that this thing will be adopted is high, but they're willing to risk it. And that's why the American ecosystem, their tech, Silicon Valley is very, very big. I mean, you're having unicorns. Go and check their list of stock exchange, the companies on their stock exchange. They are filled with tech companies. But in this part of the world, we are so averse to failure. I mean, we're so failure conscious that we don't, if you fail at one thing, you can't even say it. But you see, over there, they celebrate failure, So we need to imbibe that. And it also starts from our thinking. You have to start from our mentality. That's why it's easy for somebody, you just talked about, cookathon and all that. It's easy for somebody to, do a Guinness World Record on cooking, and everybody wants to copy it. But there are other things that you can do, but it's difficult to sell that idea. But what people know is what has succeeded. That's why if you look at the tech space, even you find out that most companies, all they're doing is fintech, 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 fintech. But fintech is not the only space where you can innovate. So I think that we need to imbibe failure for us to move from that zero to the day we start imbibe failure, the day a bank can give you a loan or an angel investor can give you money without expecting any return and encourages you to fail. So it is in doing that when you fail. So if you try 1,000 things, there's a possibility that 10 of them will work, and then that's how you grow. I think that's the only way you can actually, move from that zero to what? We need to fail fast, we need to fail often, but we need to fail forward.
Thank you very much, Sheyi, for being with us on the show today. I like the energy with which you've talked about the issues around tech. It shows that you are passionate, and we hope that so many more passionate tech experts like you will move Africa, not just Nigeria, from where it is, from playing catch-up to actually being innovators. All right, this is where we wrap the discussion.
Thank you very much for having me.
And return to look at something else. Stay tuned to Early Exchange.
Position. Let us start. Start with the top. Okay. This one. Tech Premium. Let's go to Tech Premium. You can start. I want to go.
thanks for staying tuned. We're not done talking tech today as we move now to techpreneuring. Have you ever heard about that? It's a combination of two words, technology and entrepreneurship. It's the act of combining entrepreneurship with technology. So we are in the day of tech, or in the days of tech. So you can't be doing one and leaving the other. If you are a tech expert, it's expected that you become an entrepreneur also, become entrepreneurial with your tech skills. And if you are an entrepreneur, it is also expected that you complement what you do with technology, and that's what we'll be looking at today. How many persons are doing that, and are they doing it correctly? What are the gains when you become a techpreneur? And that's what we'll discuss right now. Ayo, are you a techpreneur, or do you intend to become one?
I may not be able to disclose whether I'm a techpreneur because I play in a particular space. I'm a media person, first and foremost. But then all of us are into tech. Before now, tech was the back end, so to speak. If you had a hospital, the physical hospital was the front end, then tech was the back end. But today, tech is the front end for everybody. What we're doing now is leveraging on tech. So in the particular context, we are all, techpreneurs. That is the new, vocation for all of us. And then talking about, techpreneurs, Africa has had, quite a number of young people who are doing extremely well in their spaces. We have the likes of Inyoluwa Aboyeji, Nigeria, who is a co-founder of Andela and Floataway. Of course, we do know the likes of Rebecca Inon Chong from Cameroon, who is the founder and CEO of Appstech. And the likes of Strive, Masiu, and so on and so forth, we all know what they do. Even back home here, Adeola Aderomo, who founded, Life Bank, and they are doing well for themselves. But we are not doing enough, because I am of the opinion that if we can have one techpreneur, maybe in 5 families, 1 out of 5 families, if we can have that, that's a big and ambitious goal, but it's achievable. But then maybe we won't be talking about unemployment this much in Africa. So today we're looking at the factors that are promoting, techpreneuring, why we are having them in numbers these days, and why we should still have them more. What are the challenges that are facing them? These and many more are the aspects of techpreneur that we'll be looking at. Don't forget, the theme of the day is wealth creation. That's why we are not talking about poverty today. We are talking about several aspects or dimensions to, creating wealth.
Yeah, we're talking about the challenges that is limiting the number of techpreneurs that we're having, or why we're not even having enough of them. Finance is one issue, definitely. Access to funding, because it's not enough for you to have an idea or even a skill. How do you turn that skill into something that serves a large population? You need money to finance these things. And so it's a limiting factor for some of people who would want to become techpreneurs. In the absence of finance, some of them just take up jobs with already existing tech companies, and then that's where it ends. They may have other things that they want to do. They may have other abilities to bring on several innovations, but where you don't have the funds to back up what you want to do, all you have to do at that point in time is to begin to work with someone. It's like a designer, somebody who can own maybe a fashion label, but they don't have the finance to do that. They just pick up a job and begin to pair with someone who's already starting. And so you're limited to the designs that person's already existing business wants to have. These are some of the factors. And then the business skill too, because it's not just enough for you to have the money too. Can you sustain the business? Do you have the knowledge, the skill to run such a business?
Okay, well, that question will probably be answered by our guest in the house, via Zoom, I beg your pardon. Mr. Jide Aware is our guest, and is the CEO of Jidor Systems. Good morning, Mr. Jide.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, good to have you again. Yes, we just did an opening about the rise of techpreneuring in Africa and the need for us to do so much more. But then let me ask you, first and foremost, What is that factor, or what are those factors
Hello,
that are
boy. How are you?
promoting the maybe arithmetic rise of techpreneur in the African ecosystem? For starters, we're having many young people there. What is the incentive that is driving them to participate? Okay, we'll come back to Jude. Okay. All right, can you still hear me? All right, we'll go back to. I was trying to ask, why we have a lot of people, a lot of young people taking up, positions in techpreneuring today. Okay, you're back. So, would you please answer that question now?
I can hear you, yes.
Yes. Why? What is the motivating factor for young people that are increasing in number every day? That's what we want, really. But we'd like to find out what is the incentive driving them into techpreneuring as we have it today.
Entrepreneuring is a very practical field, and it utilizes the creativity of young people. It utilizes their energy, it utilizes their interest, and because young people tend to have a passion for technology. So techpreneurship also goes further and takes them beyond just using technology to start creating useful products that can be useful in the society, services that can be useful. And so we find a lot of young people that are interested in that because you are tapping into their ideas, you are tapping into their energy, and they like technology. And now when they also see that technology idea, that technology innovation is also solving problems, not just solving problems, and they are also being rewarded for it. And so when people see that kind of thing, there is an interest and there is also a reward. So that's one of I think those are the major factors that actually motivate young people to go into tech entrepreneurship, because it's an area that they're really interested in, and there's also a huge reward in it to work hard.
All right, so for those who are already in it, what are some of the challenges that they face?
The challenge is we've talked about capital as a major issue. No matter how brilliant your ideas are, you have the capital to go ahead and implement your idea, and you have to look at the terms of resources. Sometimes availability of resources, availability of infrastructure. Because for example, when we talk of entrepreneurship, it's not just limited to the urban areas like Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Abuja. But if you're an entrepreneur somewhere you don't have good infrastructure, you're going to have challenges. Because the best infrastructure services are still in the urban area. So those are some of the challenges. And then another challenge is to have a more favorable environment for tech entrepreneurs. An environment where techpreneurs, tech startups are encouraged, not an environment where they're stifled. I mean, in terms of registering their business, in terms of even in terms of business skills, in terms of the environment itself, it's encouraging them, or because sometimes when you're in technology, there's a tendency, because technology is seen as a area, or authority regulators to think that they should use you for revenue generation. But some of these entrepreneurs are just starting, they are not even yet gaining much revenue, and you are facing them with that kind. So the regulations, even the bureaucracy in terms of registering the organization, registering the company, getting jobs done, the ease of doing business. These are some of the challenges that techpreneurs face. And then, of course, when you talk of techpreneurs, there must be tech talent. So sometimes you have certain things you want to do, and you might not have sufficient talent available for you to get the job done. So there may be scarcity of talent, or you're a techpreneur and the talent that you need, you are competing with large multinationals, you are competing with large tech giants, and you understand, you are competing with financial institutions, and you are just a techpreneur. So that's another area.
All right.
Find that
Okay.
techpreneurs are having challenges.
The last guest, I mean, the guest that preceded your segment was talking about the fact that, you know, most techpreneurs in Nigeria are into fintech. Fintech is not the only niche market that exists there in the tech world. Could you please, you know, educate the viewers more? What other areas can tech intervene? What other areas can techpreneurs look at apart from fintech, which seems to be a bit, you know, crowded at this point in time?
Okay. Apart from fintech, you see, when you are talking about entrepreneurs, you have to look at it in terms of, um, you know, the services and the products. So you are looking at when you look at fintech. Fintech is actually ICT-enabled services. So within ICT-enabled services, there are so many opportunities there. Apart from fintech, you have in the ICT education, you have in the health sector, you have in agriculture that are not even being exploited yet. You understand? Those are ICT-enabled services because ICT services itself is also can also be you can also be a techpreneur. You offer software services, you offer ICT services, and then an area that we have not really you know, gone into is something like, you know, the hardware aspect, you know, in terms of creating, you know, practical products, physical products, which is also, those are also areas that technologists can consider. So it's not just fintech, it's a wide area. You have the ICT services themselves, have the ICT enabled, the ones that are enabled by ICT, by technology, and then you also have what I call the physical areas that are not yet being explored at all.
Okay, in creating hardware products, in what way does consumer behavior impede this development? We find that in other sectors, when it comes to manufacturing, there seems to be a preference in this environment for foreign produced goods. Are we also seeing that in the tech area?
Yes, yes, we definitely see that. There's still this preference for foreign goods. But you see, the techpreneur has to persist and has to go out of his way to be more adaptable. You see, the where you can try to compete is when you are more abreast of your local situations and then you try to customize to your local environment, which is what I think some of the fintech have been able to do. Because if you look at fintech early days, most of the banking software that are used in Nigeria, they are from places like India, from Europe. But right now, you know, you have a lot of fintech that are done locally. So the same thing in other areas of fintech, you understand? But there's always that initial resistance, that foreign, that, you know, there's at times maybe I don't know whether I believe that something foreign must be better what is produced locally, you know, because this is part of why there should be more support of, you know, one of the challenges I made mention is the supportive of the thing of the
Okay. All right. Um, most of the tech companies that we have, or a lot of the techpreneurs that we have in the African society today, are focused more on, you know, profit making. Of course, I know that quite some of them, you know, are playing in some other sectors. Let us look at social techpreneuring. What social intervention can techpreneurs focus on? For those of them who don't want to go into profit maximization as the core objective. Okay, so we lost the signal there. I was just asking, essentially, blessing, at the beginning of, you know, tech involvement, most of them that came into the space were, you know, looking at how to, you know, make profit. They were in it for business reasons, which is understandable. But then at some point we have to move to the point of, you know, social engineering, using the tech space as well to drive social conversations and solve social problems. I was about asking him that, but then he is not here. At the end of it all, I just like to say that yes, the young ones are not doing badly in that tech space in Nigeria or
Yes.
in Africa, as the case may be. We can do so much more, but then for those of them who can watch and see what we're doing at this point in time, let's look at solving social problems.
Yeah, to answer that, I think one has to go before there because you understand that these tech people also have needs that should be met. And so for every business, like you rightly mentioned, profit is number one, and then you can talk about the social aspects. But if we have funding support from government, and that takes care of the concern of sustainability in terms of how do you keep the company going, then they can give some attention to meeting social needs or creating softwares that attend to social aspects of life, maybe improving security and making things easy for people. But until that is done, for every business person, you have bills to pay. If you have a staff, you think of how to pay salaries and how to keep the company running. So profits will always be top on the agenda, except there is some form of economic support towards entrepreneurs so that they will have the space and the attention to give to the social aspects.
Okay, that is just that. That's very apt. And that's how we end this particular segment of the program. In all of these conversations, there is one common index there, which is finance. Whether you are a techpreneur or you are into any other form of entrepreneurship, you need finance. But then there is something that drives effective finance, that is financial literacy. If they give you $5 million without being literate financially, you will blow everything. So after this short break, we'll talk about the place of financial literacy in even boosting the tech ecosystem or even the entrepreneurship ecosystem anywhere in the world. Sam will be here with us to speak to that, and we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Thanks for being there. There are different kinds of literacy. It used to be thought that once you've gone through the 4 walls of an academic institution, then of course you were literate. But as time went on, we began to see that you need to be literate in different areas. When computers came on board with the advent of computers, there was a talk about being computer literate. And so people who had no knowledge of how to use a computer went to computer schools. Those who were already out of any academic institution at that particular time had to go to some place to learn how to use the computer to become computer literate. But today we're talking about financial literacy. What are the things you should know regarding finance? How does financial literacy help you to create wealth? These are what we'll be looking at right now as we have Sam Uruji, who is Director, Research Policy and Development, FemiWash Limited, owners of Souq News. Thank you for being on the show today. Good morning, sir.
Bless you. My pleasure to be here.
Good morning.
And Aya, good morning.
Good to have you here.
So let's talk about financial literacy. What is it exactly when we talk about financial literacy?
All right, thank you very much. When you talk about financial literacy, it simply put as the financial skill that you need to manage your personal income. Simply put. So how do you manage your personal income? So to what extent can you derive ratios in terms of what you put into savings, what you put aside for your personal expense, what you put aside on other investment portfolio on a sustainable manner to be able to create wealth in the long run. That's what financial literacy. So it's a skill on how to manage money, or put simply, the way you can manage money to create wealth. That's financial literacy.
Okay, in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I'm talking about Robert Kiyosaki's book that was published, several years ago, which is world acclaimed. He did mention the fact that this kind of literacy you're talking about is not resident in most of the curricula that we have in some schools. That was back then. Is it still the situation? Will you still say we are not, doing so much of teaching this kind of literacy in our school system?
Within the school system, maybe those in business studies, business management, they have some idea. But what is important in this regard is for you to develop yourself in terms of financial discipline. That enables you to be able to manage your personal income and manage money in a sustainable manner that you create wealth. So, but there are certain principles that you must use to address those issues. So, first and foremost, what are your financial goals? What are your financial objectives? Which is dependent on your current earning. So how do you deploy your resource in a manner that you're able to take care of yourself, you're able to save something for the future, you're able to pay up other obligations, save for your children's school fees. If you want a further education, what do you set aside? So there are ratios that you need to develop to be able to save money in a sustainable manner. Then you are able to create wealth.
Now, what is the connection between financial literacy and entrepreneurship? How does financial literacy enable you to become entrepreneur to create or even sustain wealth if you've come by wealth?
All right. So entrepreneurs are people who have ideas and want to put those ideas into practice to provide a solution in a particular sector within the economy. Therefore, for you to even be a successful entrepreneur, you need to have a minimum savings or a percentage of contribution to sustain the idea before you go to even venture capitalists and every other person, even if you want to borrow for the bank. What kind of equity are you bringing into that space to be able to sustain your big idea? So entrepreneurship and financial literacy has some relationship. So you may have big idea, then you need finance. Then you need some part of the finance to be able to sustain that idea, even when you want people to invest in your business or in your idea.
Okay. Now, when we talk about financial literacy, there is a particular myth that it is limited to those who are directly in the world of finance. For instance, at the school level, some would probably assume that it is meant for those who are studying business. And the science students may think, oh, that's not my forte. Those who are into arts might think that is not my forte. We know that is a myth. Can you just bust the bubble for us? Why should everybody on planet Earth be financially literate, regardless of your discipline?
In fact, it's financial literacy that can help you to sustain wealth in a manner that you are able to manage your resources very well. So it's not about your subject discipline. It's about your ability to understand that money is a resource that needs to be managed properly. And if you don't manage money properly, then you're going to have some little problem in life. Therefore, it's not an exclusive preserve of those who are in business management or who are entrepreneurs. It's an area that everybody needs to be literate about. So, but there are basic strategies that you need to deploy to be able to do your financial management well. So budgeting, personal budgeting. So how much do you earn? If you earn 100 naira, for example, how do you budget this 100 naira? what percentage are you putting in savings? What percentage are you saving for mortgage? What percentage are you saving for your idea? So those are the essential elements. After budgeting, then what other investment portfolio that are available there that you want to create to sustain your future? So literacy is a basic requirement for everybody. And you need to be literate in the way you manage finance so that you don't get yourself into problems. So if you don't know how to manage your resources, you're likely to go into a problem. So your credit worthiness, the way you can access credit, are dependent on your ability to manage finances. And that's essentially what financial literacy is all about.
Now, change is the only constant thing in life, and a lot has changed with the aspects of financial literacy. You've talked about savings, investments. Coming to savings, what has changed with the way people save? What is the new trend or the new development with respect to saving? Before now, when people talk about savings, it's just, oh, when you maybe earned, you take something out of what you've earned and then you put it in the bank, or you have maybe a box, a piggy box, and then you put some money into that. What has changed with these practices? And what are the new ways to save?
Well, if you view it from the point of view of financial portfolio, there are new other investment portfolio that are not available in the past that are now. You have people who are playing in the fintech area where you can equally invest into. So, but key, if I understand that question very correctly, is that first, you must have financial discipline. Then two, what kind of savings options are available? In financial literacy, the first philosophy is paying yourself. You know, you pay 10% for those of us who have affiliation to our various faiths. You pay 10% of whatever you earn, call different names. So I don't want to speak in particular reference so that I don't offend the sensibility of certain people. Then after that, you pay yourself 10%. That 10% should go into an investment. It could be a saving investment, it could be another kind of investment. But it's critical for whatever you earn. If you earn 100 naira, pay yourself 10 naira. After paying another 10 naira elsewhere, then you now plan around the remaining 80 naira that is left into all kinds of investment options. Some are immediate to sustain you, some are in the medium term, some are in the long term, depending again on your financial goal, dependent on your budget outlay.
Okay, yes. We do know that in Africa in particular, oral tradition plays a key role, and behavioral modeling is also part of the mix that we have here. I do remember that growing up, we had our own little banks, and you were encouraged to drop money there. Your daddy will tell you, if you can save up to so amount, by December, I will double it for you. We didn't know that it was part of the plan to teach us financial literacy. Does that still happen? What is the role of parenting in boosting or promoting financial literacy at the home front? Let's not forget that the home is the first school for the child.
I think essentially it's about financial discipline. You learn, make people to be accountable in terms of how they manage resources. So it's the roles of parents to teach their wards or children on how to save. So even if they have gifts, people give them gifts, they should learn how to save from those gifts. If they are cash gifts, they spend some part, then put a percentage into savings. I can recall in my earlier days as a boy who just left secondary school, I used to have a savings in the post office bank. Each time I look through some of my document, I think I still have a deposit of about 30 naira in the early 80s, where we were trained putting that money first in that box, then you take that money out of the box and you put it into the post office savings. So
you should go for your interest. It should have increased by now.
No, then the post office bank were not sustainable. Changes occur. But when I just look at the passbook, I just smile about some of those things that we did when we were young. So it's encouraged that parents should encourage their wards and children to keep part of the money, even pocket money, if they give them, they should learn to save a part for the rainy day. So that's part of the illiteracy. So the principle is pay yourself. Because essentially, the money we earn is spent for others. So you must pay yourself at least what those in personal income says, 10% of your earning should be paid, and you can put that into any form of investment that you choose will be good for you, and you earn interest. So even though people complain that the interest element from savings are very low, but notwithstanding, you must have the principles of savings. And if you understand the concept of money, the definition of money is that you have money for transactional purpose, for pecuniary purpose, and again, sometimes where there are challenges, you have something that you can fall back on.
Now, what we're seeing from some parents, maybe because some of them are very literate when it comes to finances, they make investments on behalf of their children. But we do not see a lot of parents do that. Even some children who were opportunity to come into some form of earning at an early stage, maybe because of their talents. If they are in the entertainment space, they begin to earn early. So what is the role of early education and making it a curriculum thing so that children or people from an early age know how to identify investment opportunities, not just how to save, but investment opportunities?
Okay. I think one of the elements of financial literacy is where you save on behalf of your children before they become adults. Then two, constantly you must realize that you need to teach your children that there are investment opportunity, and early in life as they start their career, they should have those financial objectives that will enable them to look at various investments options. So you're talking about stock market, you can buy shares, as even those you bought for your children, when they are 18, you can transfer and they can continue in that. You can have a mortgage plan even before you start working. So the portfolio is a large one. So it depends, like I said earlier, is your personal finance and investment objective, which you need to define yourself vis-a-vis your personal income and your current earning status.
Okay. In some parts of the world, young people are encouraged to take up holiday jobs, not really because their parents can't afford to, attend to their needs, but they probably want them to learn about how to make money and to have value for the use of money. But we don't really seem to have that around here. Kids are on holidays now. They are roaming the street, they are playing, they are watching all the movies. Is this a case of mindset, or would you say allowing your word to work during the holiday is part of the financial education that the person needs to grow?
Precisely. A lot of parents are doing that. But if you look at the job market currently, even those who are qualified don't even have a job. So it's a challenge. But I know that parents encourage their wards to work and earn money and know how to spend money. And what it is, they equally save from that as well. But the challenge is that the job market is so tight. But there are people who work either for their career development as well. They intern in the organization so that they can earn money, equally get experience, so that their career trajectory or career path is sustained through those processes. So the education is there, but the space to take more people to practice that financial literacy is a bit limited based on the unemployment rate in the country as we speak.
Now, we find that the level of poverty, you will find it very high when you go to rural areas. Making financial literacy available for rural dwellers, what is the way to go about that? Is it left for maybe those who are financial experts to begin to do an outreach program into those areas to perhaps educate them? Or it is a government thing to begin to reorient the people and bring to them in the language they understand how to become financial literate and how to use that tool to create wealth?
I think even the rural dwellers are more financially illiterate. More financial literate than those of us who are in the city.
In what way?
Yeah, they have, those who are even market women, they have what they call a thrift contribution, where they save money from their daily enterprise. They have cooperative society where they save money, even for festivals. So they are literate. But the level at which we want to upscale their financial inclusion, people can teach more, where they can take money into a mortgage bank, or what do you call it, the other financial service player within those communities, so that those money will come into the pool of resources that people can access. So in terms of literacy, I think they are, but we should just upscale the level of which those money can come into the financial system.
Okay, that is the much we can take today on the show. Sam Oloye, thank you for being here. He is the Director, Policy Research and Development for Femi Walsh Limited, owners of Souq News and Walsh Radio. And that is how we wrap today. My name is Ayo Jimmy. I'll see you on Monday. Thank you very much. Blessing.
It's been a wonderful week. Thank you for being with us all through from Monday to Friday. So as you enjoy your rest, begin to think ahead of the coming week and how you can identify opportunities to either invest in or a solution that you may want to provide so you can make money out of it. I am Blessing AG. Do enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend.